Hey, this is Gary, and welcome to our video tutorial on making a 2D framework using LibGdx. So last time we left off, we had done the animation, showed you how that worked, and then we did the image screens where we showed you rendering of just images. And now this video, we're going to consolidate that into our framework. So first thing we're going to do in our framework, we're going to make a new package. And we're going to call that animation. So ideally for our framework, we want to be able to have the still image and the animation image kind of be consolidated as one type of object. And so that we can use them interchangeably. And so to do that, we're going to make an interface here. And we'll just call it animation. Here is our animation interface. So we have the draw method, and so this draw method would take the batch, the X and Y location, and the animation interface isn't going to care if it is a still image or it's one that is animated. The draw method would be the same for both, and the specific implementations will do the differences between the two. We'll also have a get height method and a get width method, and then we're going to have an update method. So we're going to, in this framework, we're going to do our updates separate from our rendering. Now the first one we're going to tackle will deal with the images. And so a single image, obviously it's not animated. It's really a kind of a static animation. And so what we'll do is we'll create our static animation, or we could have called it still animation. It's going to extend that base animation. And so in it, we're going to have the texture, the origin of the rotation, the X and Y, the rotation degrees, and we're going to set an X start and an X source width. These are for cropping, a Y start and a Y source height. And then we have our flipping, horizontal and vertical. And then we're going to set those to the default to false. So in our basic constructor, it's going to just take that texture, set that, and it'll get the source width and height based off of the texture's height and width, and then the height and width also based off of the texture's height and width. And then we'll have a separate constructor that will take a height and width for resizing the image. And so that will set the width and height based on the values passed in. The source height and width, we just leave it the same as the texture. And then this is our draw method. And so it takes that batch and draws that texture. And this is the method, the draw method that takes all the different parameters. So our X and Y, our origin, our width, our height, our rotation, or this is our scaling. Since we're not going to use scaling, you can change the width and height to get that scaling effect. So we'll just set those to 1. Specific rotation. This is the X and Y start and source width for cropping the image. And then we have our flipping of horizontal and update. The update method, since it's a static image, there is no update. And then this one is for setting the cropping. So we have our X and Y starts and our width, so you can specify those. And it will readjust the width and the height of the image based off of the values passed in. And if the rotation is not 0, it will calculate the origin, which would be the center of the image, so it rotates at the center and not at a corner. That way our image will kind of stay within the original bounds of where we placed our animation. Here's for setting the the flipping of horizontal and vertically. And then here's for setting the rotation. Now let's demonstrate using the new static animation. We'll go over to our image screen again. And so you can see this is where we're drawing the image, and a portion of the image is the resize. So let's demonstrate those first. So what we would need to do, static animation, just call it SA1. And we'll create a second one. SA2. SA1. New static animation. That's just going to take the texture. For SA2, we'll do a resize. We'll just double it to 256. And so I'll comment this one out, and we'll do here. Now for our static animation, all we have to do is just call draw with an X and Y coordinate. So there it is, the same size drawn. You can see it renders exactly the same. Now we'll come back in here, go ahead and get rid of that. We'll render our resized one. Let's set this back to, let's set that at 2. And this one we'll just draw, we'll make this at 150. And since we already did our resize there, it will be enlarged like so. And so then we can tweak that. So we have, make it 100 across, 200 height, and so that'll be stretched. And you see it stretched. And let's compare that with this one. Let's move this over. You see, it looks almost exactly, looks exactly the same. So we get rid of those two. Add another static animation. Let's say 3. I'll just give it the texture. And then for SA3, we'll set our cropping. And so we want to mimic what we did here, the 15, 5, and 100, and 105. And so let me comment out this one for the moment, and this one. And then we'll draw him at that location. And there we go. That's the original method that we use, and this is our new method. And you can see its proportion is all set, all the same. Okay, so now we've rendered a portion, got that working. And so the next thing we'll look at is this one here for the, actually we'll go to the rotation because it uses the same method that we're using now. This one is using a different method, and so we'll hit that one in just a moment. And so create a, actually we just use our SA1. Set our rotation 45 degrees. Comment we'll rotate all of these. So SA1 is now at 45. SA2, we're going to put him at 150. And then SA3, 400. And so we've enlarged this one. We set the cropping already. And let's say we set the rotation 45 for this one, 45 for that one, and now so we know that the width and the height are already set when we set cropping, and so this guy just does the center of what's in the new one. We'll test that out first. And it's rotating, and you can see that, oh, that's the one we've got it stretched. And so it's rotating within whatever the center is. So normally it was up to here, right? And now it's, it looks like it goes below that point because it's rotated. And that's to be expected. So now what we're going to do is now to kind of test that, if we set our rotation first, then our cropping, and make sure that it renders correctly. And there you go. It's rendering just like it did before. So the last method that we covered previously was this one that takes the V and the U entries. So essentially everything that we've done can mimic what this method does. So I'm not going to add it to our animation framework, but it could easily be added just by implementing the animation interface and then using this method to actually draw the image. So that's going to do it for this video, and the next video I will go into the actual moving animations and integrate that into our animation framework. See you in the next video.